Hey, yo! Alright. Alright, RJ. Dope. Let's go. That is right. We did make Hakari's domain expansion in a week. Because we're crazy. RJ Hooks lied to me. He said I only need to make train doors in June. Come September, I'm making a turnstile. This video will explain how I did the 3D modeling to help RJ Hooks do his Hakari domain expansion video. This was a group collaboration. RJ was directing all of it and starring in it, and he asked a bunch of us to help him with this project. I was so excited when he did ask me. I've been wanting to test out some of the stuff that I had been learning in Blender. I will say, yes, he lied to me, but I will do anything for RJ, so the quick change of me making train doors to a turnstile wasn't that bad. It did take me longer to make, obviously, because trying to make train doors versus trying to make a full turnstile, very different shapes. Very, very different shapes. I will still have to make those train doors, by the way, so that RJ can do Hakari's curse technique. I've been in Blender now for like 10 months. This was definitely the test of if we can like actually use these for videos and do this. And I found the experience very rewarding, even though we only had a week to do this. This was an insane week. Also, no, I actually, probably less than a week. I think I spent 4 days on it. Like if I had to like really add up all the time that I did it, it was probably a 4-day process, which for some reason for me, everything takes 4 days when I make something. In the Ichidori video with the lines on my face, that took me 4 days, this took me 4 days. Normally I give myself 4 days for a project. I would have probably liked maybe an extra few days to work on it, but we were on a deadline. We had talked about doing this type of video back in June and July, but if you've been around, you know that I have been back-to-back cons non-stop. It definitely had to wait a little bit, and then come September, RJ got a brand deal and was just like, hey buddy, about that domain expansion. Originally, I wasn't even supposed to make the ball for it, but every few weeks, RJ would be like, hey buddy, can you also do this? And I, of course, agreed, because it's RJ. I want to see him succeed more than anything. I think RJ is one of the most talented editors and creators that I have ever met, so if I can help him in any way, I will. Which I really like. I like group collaborations where it feels like a bunch of us can come together and make a project, and it's not just like one person did this all. It's like we can come together as like a group and create something even more amazing than what we originally thought. The funniest message I got from RJ during this time was, do you know what a turnstile is? And that was right before I realized, oh my god, he's gonna ask me to make a turnstile instead of train doors. He outed me also as being a train kid. Outing me as being a train kid, Mr. Hooks. A little true though, I do like trains, and I had been working on train stuff for Blender anyways, for my own Jujutsu Kaisen stuff. When he had come to me about the train doors, I was like, yeah, no problem. When he said something about a turnstile, I was like, I've been through enough New York turnstiles to know what they look like. I'm worried that you are asking me this question though, a day before I'm supposed to make this for you. And getting that message and being like, I'm gonna have to make a turnstile, alright. On top of it, I had to learn a bunch of stuff within the process of doing it because I'm newer to Blender. 10 months is not actually a long time. But I've come a long way since I first opened the app, and now I feel like I have a little more of a grasp on what I'm doing, where when RJ did come to me and ask me to do this project, I was like, okay, I've done some small things for my own videos. Let's try this. I'm not going to explain all the really technical jargon of what I had to do to make the things for those Blender stuff because I would not be able to properly explain this considering while making this, I was watching tutorials on it. So something would happen and I would Google and then I would go back and fix it and then Google again. And it was just a process like that, which is basically how you learn Blender. This was definitely a big test of can I do this and can we incorporate this actually into videos. We did try to find a model that could fit. It's just I wasn't gonna pay for one. So I was like, it was 11 a.m. and I'm on the phone with RJ. I'm showing him this model. He goes, can you reshape it? I go, all right, let me try. And then 3 hours later, I'm sending him a message that's like, hey, couldn't do that. So I've remade it. Here's what it looks like, not textured. I'm halfway done with it. Goodbye. And then disappeared into the void. In 6 hours, had basically an almost finished thing without it fully detailed. I was pretty impressed by my ability to do that because I just kind of looked at the reference photo that RJ had given me and then broken down all the shapes of it and then made all those shapes in Blender and then put it together like a big Lego thing, which is basically how anything in Blender goes. When you're doing these types of projects and trying to like match real life to these Blender shapes, it's all about being able to break down the types of shapes that go into it, and then you can more easily remake stuff and figure out which way things go. After I made everything, then went into animation. The more complicated thing was when I had to go and layer all of it in the compositing thing. So I took RJ's footage and layered one of it, and then had to copy and paste them multiple times so I could get this infinite loop going until the end of the clip, just for me to find out 5 hours later that I did it in the wrong direction. Whoops. You can't expect much from me at 4 a.m., but it did look pretty. I put so much detail in that turnstile that no one's gonna see because it flies by so quickly you can't see it. The fun things about doing this where it's like, oh my god, I'm putting so much detail in it, it looks so good. And then no one actually sees any of the detailing because it's a flying object. The next thing to finish the domain expansion was the actual ball of it, which that I had a time with texturing, because there were certain things that RJ asked me to do for it. It needed to be reflective, it needed to have some type of texture, and it needed to be able to reflect the clouds off of the environment. So the cloud part, very easy. Was able to just pop that in there. The texturing part of it, I had a time, because it's a sphere, and a perfectly round sphere, when you go and animate it to spin, it will not look like it's spinning if it has no texture on it. So I had to find a mix between a reflective surface that was slightly textured that would also reflect the sky, and like what RJ was asking, because he wanted more of a textured feel to it. After I had finished all the animation for everything and I had composited things, 8 a.m. came around and I decided I'm gonna remake this whole thing, and I'm gonna just dive into Blender Kit and just find a texture that matches this. And it had to hit almost 9 o'clock. Oh my god, I'm not gonna be able to find anything. This is gonna be terrible. How am I gonna do this? The last minute, I find this texture, and it's a dark glass material with fingerprints on it. And I'm like, oh, perfect. And I slammed that thing in there so quickly and just shifted around a little bit and then hit the export button, and I was like, I'm done. I did it. We were able to get all the 3 elements that we wanted within it, and it moving and animated in that time frame. I learned so much from that process that I was just like, oh my god, RJ, next project. Which RJ has already come to me and was like, hey, can we get more of those animated turnstiles going? And I'm like, give me 2 weeks to rest from con, and then yes. And that is more of the process of how I was able to make these types of models within Blender. Again, I'm not gonna go over like the specifics of how to make something. There is plenty more very smart and talented people that are way better at explaining this Blender stuff than I am. I definitely highly recommend going and Googling if you are looking to learn actually how to make stuff in Blender. Maybe one day I will get good enough to be able to sit down and properly be like, you must use this node and then this texture thing and then clip it all together and then this is how you do it. I just do it right now. Explaining how it is, if I really got into the technical stuff of doing Blender, oh my god, your eyes would glaze over. Ta-ta! I watch Sparkle's eyes glaze over when I am in the middle of being like, oh my god, I got this new texture pack and I'm doing this texture thing. Look at the nodes that and it's just like a bunch of things that don't make sense to anyone except people that understand Blender. That is how I helped RJ with making his Hakari domain expansion. I think this was a really amazing project for us all to work on. I had so much fun, even though it was very stressful and it was cutting it down to the wire of doing it. It made me and forced me to learn a lot and to have a project that's complete within this such short time period. On top of making this, I was also producing my own content and then also having to recover from conventions because I had 2 conventions back to back during that time. And if you know, you know about September for me. So it was such a stressful time period for me. It was nice to just be able to just focus on this one project during that time and just be like, oh my god, yes, full in on it. Love this. Love that this is taking me 16-hour days to be able to work on this. I know that sounds crazy, but like there is something about it that you do lose track of time when you're in the middle of it. Like there is plenty of days where I will look at the clock and it'll be like 2, and then I look at it again and it'll be like 9 p.m. and I'm like, what the hell? When did the time get away from me? Thank you again, RJ, for asking me to be a part of this project. I learned a lot from doing this. You are definitely like a giant inspiration for me, and you always keep me pushing when it comes to doing my editing. And I love that me and you just have, for the last year, been pushing each other with more of our editing stuff. And if you guys want to hear more about how we did this and RJ's thought process of doing Hakari's domain expansion, he has a video on his YouTube channel explaining more in depth of the thought process and what went into it, and shouting out the other creators that were also involved with it, because there was voice actors, there was people doing like sound design, there was me doing the 3D modeling, there was like a bunch of people, there was 4 people that were involved with this project, and I'm very proud of us and what we were able to do together. So I'm very excited for like what else we can make in the future, because this opens up like a lot of potentials for me and RJ to create even bigger things than what we thought was originally possible, which is why I wanted to go down like the Blender route and like do more 3D modeling and actually take the time to learn this stuff, where it's like I can make stuff from scratch. We can make anything. We can do anything. And when you're within like the cosplay community and like cosplaying anime characters and shows, it's like, oh my god, we could do anything. We can make Hakari's domain expansion. We could do Mahito's domain expansion if we wanted to. Like, we could just choose something to do and then do it in this like really like hyper-realistic form, which is what I'm trying to go for, is more like ideal in like hyper-realism and trying to like go more towards like a realistic route. My thought process always on like making stuff is, how would this look in a real life? I never go like completely screen accurate, because sometimes what looks good in 2D does not look good in 3D. So I always take that into account whenever I'm making something, because I do want it to match real life as close as possible. I enjoy that. I like that like true to life feeling for it. And like Blender has that has a lot of those options for me to do. I've been learning so much through this process and through doing everything, and I'm very, very excited for what's coming next. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I had a lot of fun explaining to you guys and bullying RJ a little bit. His video was so nice to me. Like, he's complimenting me the whole time, and I start my video with, RJ lied to me. How dare he? He just didn't know. If you want to see RJ's explanation of more of the Hakari domain expansion, it's going to be on his account. Larger tutorials every 2 weeks, unless there's something else that comes up where I sit down and more explain like the thought process and how things are done of like anything that we really do. So if you guys have any questions of like the things we do, like photography, posing, editing wise, cosplaying, anything that you could think of that is something that we do and you want explained or like further in-depth talked about, I would be happy to sit down and explain. Next video is finally the front seat episode of our time at Anime NYC. Very excited to sit down and explain to you guys everything we went through, which makes it sound bad, but cons are always crazy for us. And then after that will actually be the vlog from it. So I'm very excited for you guys to see that. We have some very fun videos planned, especially for the holiday times, because those are coming up soon. Stay tuned for that, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye! Oh, don't forget to subscribe. Yeah. Bye, guys.